Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar. We are very excited to cover CloudEndure and disaster recovery today, and we're very delighted to have our guest Roman Schwartz from CloudEndure, as well as Jesse Clements from Iris. And Roman, I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself.
Great. So I'm Roman Schwartz. I've been with CloudEndure for about a year. We are an AWS disaster recovery company. We provide both disaster recovery and migration to AWS, and I work on the partner side, helping Iris and other partners be able to utilize the software to provide disaster recovery for your teams.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jesse. I'm the Director of Professional Services at Iris Solutions, and I am a technology nerd through and through. My day-to-day here at Iris involves working within the AWS ecosystem, consulting with our clients, and generally just ensuring that everything is as secure as it can be. I've been leveraging and deploying AWS services for the past 4 years, and prior to that, used it personally as a sandbox to test solutions, build labs, so on and so forth. We've deployed CloudEndure to dozens of clients, and I can definitively state that CloudEndure is the next generation of disaster recovery. So I'm excited to be on the call today and look forward to sharing what I can. And without further ado, I'll turn it back over to Roman.
Thanks, Jesse. So to start with, I kind of want to cover what disaster recovery is and why it's so important. So one of the things that we've been noticing is a trend to be able to protect critical workloads and be able to sort of adjust to the shifting market. Now, the Market Research Future Report, before actually we were hit with COVID, stated that by 2023, the estimated amount that companies are going to be spending on disaster recovery was going to be about $21 billion. And that's a growth of 44%. So the idea around this is, how do we make disaster recovery something that is both scalable and affordable for you and allow you to utilize it in a manner that would give you access to both resources such as AWS, but also at the same time allow you to have this surefire way to be able to recover in the event of any sort of disaster, be it ransomware, be it something that happens in terms of your site being down, be it networking issues, all of that stuff. And the vast majority of the amount of money that's being spent on disaster recovery is actually being spent on the services. So 40% of all disaster recovery is disaster recovery management and services. So the goal when we designed CloudEndure is to create a tool that's very easy and very simple for Iris to use and deploy in your environments, so that it's something where they can cut down on what it costs you to be able to have disaster recovery. And that's really the main goal of CloudEndure. So let's go over in high level what CloudEndure kind of brings to the picture. The first part is that it's split into really 3 different pillars. It's flexible, reliable, and highly automated. And what I mean by flexibility is the goal of CloudEndure was not to create just a tool that works with your entire VMware environment, but then what do you do with your physical servers? What do you do with your legacy technology? The goal was to create something that could work with any source, be it physical, be it virtual, be it a different cloud. Really, it doesn't matter, and work with a wide range of operating systems. So effectively, anything Windows and Linux that can run on AWS, CloudEndure can replicate it there. And then the idea here is to allow for it to be very flexible. So be able to get you to operate inside AWS during a disaster, but then go back on-prem if you want to. If you don't, you can always stay in AWS and target a different region with CloudEndure DR. But the goal is to allow you to have this sort of flexibility in your environment while also making it very easy. And the other part to the being able to fail back and fail forward and all of these kind of options is to be able to make this reliable. So in that goal, we wanted to create something that was non-disruptive. CloudEndure installs non-disruptively in your environment without any needed or extra effort in terms of your actual production side. It's guaranteed to give you sub-second data loss rates, or RPOs. So you shouldn't lose more than a second really in terms of the data when you actually have to fail over. And it's guaranteed to spin back up in minutes. Now, I want to add there's a caveat here where the minutes that it takes to spin up does not include the boot time of the operating system, but CloudEndure by itself will actually spin up these resources within a few minutes. And then finally, and I think this part is a little bit misleading, so I'm going to add a caveat here, it protects against things like ransomware, corruption, human errors. Now, realistically, disaster recovery and CloudEndure does not protect against human errors or ransomware. I can't prevent someone from clicking on that malicious email. But what we can do is allow you to recover to a point in time before that happened. And by selecting that point in time, you can fail over before you instituted the corruption into AWS, clean up your servers, and then fail back if you want to, or as I mentioned before, continue running on AWS. The final pillar here is really the highly automated pillar. A lot of the goal of CloudEndure is to be able to be a one-click DR solution. You click the failover button, and most of the stuff is done on the back end. Now, the reality of this is that the simplicity of the tool and the RESTful APIs that we give companies like Iris allow this to happen. Out of the box, CloudEndure is something that will work, but it's something that needs a little bit of tweaking just to make sure that it works perfectly in your environment. And that's really where Iris comes in and really where they help you out with this kind of stuff. The idea is that with a minimal amount of effort, you should be able to hit the button. But Iris is also able to provide you with the ability to have them manage the service for you, or simply create a runbook for you to be able to do it yourself. And again, the second part of this highly automated feature is to allow for easy, non-disruptible DR tests. You want to be able to spin up an environment inside AWS to test out your DR solution without having it impact your actual production. And that's easily doable with CloudEndure. The other benefit here is that if you're looking to migrate down the road, if you're looking to run natively on AWS and you want to know what that looks like, or if you're contemplating migration and just aren't sure that that's the right fit for you, installing CloudEndure DR is an easy, cost-effective way to see what it would look like to run your workloads inside AWS without actually having the commitment to purchase AWS resources and actually running in AWS natively and doing the full migration. You can easily spin up a sandbox, test the applications that you're looking to test, and then when you're done, either shut it down, or if you're doing a live test, you can fail it right back. And finally, the goal of AWS and CloudEndure specifically is to create an automated, lightweight staging area that reduces the cost of ownership for a disaster recovery solution. Over the next couple of slides, I'll actually demonstrate what that means, but the goal here is that we're not spinning up extra resources when you don't need them. So as you're working in your environments, as you're working in your day-to-day life, you have a cost-effective, easy disaster recovery solution that's there when you need it, but not actually costing you the amount of money that it would to have something like a secondary location or secondary hardware that you would need. So from a high level, before we dive deep into how the technology works, I kind of just want to explain the CloudEndure DR lifecycle. So the first task of how to set up CloudEndure is you're going to actually go ahead and map the environment. So what this means is you'll leverage something like a TSO logic or something along those lines to find out how many servers you have, what size it is, what's the best scenario for you. And Iris will help you with this to leverage whatever tools you need in terms of mapping it out and getting the best possible setup for you. During this process, you're also going to do things like right-sizing the environment, making sure that you're not utilizing any more resources than you need up in AWS. After that, simply put, we will install agents on any servers that you're looking to replicate. Then Iris will go through and with you configure a blueprint of how you want those servers to look on AWS when they run. You'll then go ahead and test that out to make sure that they're running the way that they should. If you need to, you can always go back and tweak that blueprint. If not, then you're in steady state disaster recovery, which basically just means that CloudEndure is running and everything is going smoothly. And in the event of a disaster, you're able to go ahead and do that recovery and fail over. And then if necessary, you can also reverse that process and fail all the way back. And the beauty of this product, as I mentioned before, is that it really does work from everything from your on-premise environment to cross-region inside AWS to cross-cloud. The source of where you're targeting AWS from doesn't really matter to us. And that's kind of why CloudEndure has been purchased by AWS. It's why AWS supports it as its DR solution, because the idea is it really will work with just about anything in your environment. So to dive a little deeper as to what this actually looks like and where the cost savings come in, you'll see on the left there that the corporate data center or any other cloud that you're operating has these servers. Now, what CloudEndure does is from the CloudEndure console, you'll establish an agent handshake, which will then deploy agents to these servers. From there, you will target an area subnet. And what that means is that because this is not an area that will ever go live, and because machine conversion is done on the back end, this staging area subnet inside your virtual private cloud is actually something that can be very cost effective. You don't have any instances, any AC2 instances spun up except for the replication servers, which are very lightweight, small EC2 Linux servers. And there's one for every 15 volumes. So you're not going to need a lot of those. On top of that, you're going to have low-cost EBS staging volumes. So instead of using perhaps the ST1s and GP2 volumes, the solid-state drives that you would need for when you're actually spinning up, for a lot of this, you can actually leverage magnetic disks because none of this was actually going to ever go live. The idea is that this is a staging area, and therefore you don't need those robust workloads to work on solid state drives since, again, you're never going to bring this live. That's where the cost savings come in. The only time that you would actually spin up resources inside AWS, like EC2 instances for all your servers, and make sure those EBS volumes are running on GP2 or ST1, is when you're actually doing a failover and when you're actually running on AWS. So in steady state DR, you're sitting in that staging area subnet. Whenever you're running a test or an actual DR scenario is when you would spin up. And then on the fly, there would be machine conversion and attaching those EBS volumes to EC2. All of this is done within minutes and you're up and running. And that's really the goal of the program itself and the way that CloudEndure works. Because the idea here, again, is to create the most amount of cost savings for you while also providing you with an enterprise-ready, robust solution that lets you leverage everything that AWS has to offer. So before we really jump into where Iris fits into this and where they can come and help you with a lot of these features, I wanted to talk about a particular use case that we had. So Malibu Boats is one that we find very interesting because of the nature of how they progressed from here. Malibu Boats had experienced an outage, and they were running several mission-critical servers, and it was something where their recovery time took them quite a lot of time to do. And so they realized this was really not tenable. They needed to have a solution that wasn't just backups, that was something that was able to get them up and running because they were losing money by being able to have to go back and rebuild their system instead of focusing on engineering the yachts. And so what ended up happening was CloudEndure designed a system for them. We worked with them to create something and be able to leverage failing over into AWS within minutes. What they realized while they were running on AWS was actually that their servers ran 2 times faster and their performance was better than the same exact machines that were running on premise. So in leveraging this, they started to make plans for the future. And they realized that going to AWS was something that was very much on their roadmap now. They were going to be able to save costs on their architecture. They were going to be able to save time and speed in terms of the ability to run on AWS faster. And they would be able to start refactoring their workloads to work on even more AWS native services, basically leveraging things like Lambda, leveraging things like RDS to be able to facilitate a much faster, streamlined process that cost them significantly less than what they were running on premise. The beauty of the DR product was that it prevented them from having downtime, but it also allowed them to look towards the future of what AWS can really bring to the table in terms of all of the other options that they have available. And it led to the decision to significantly migrate everything to AWS within the next year. Finally, we want to talk a little bit about the pricing when it comes to CloudEndure. The pricing when it comes to CloudEndure is something that is very much in line with how AWS prices all of their options. It's priced per use. So at 0.028 cents per hour, it comes to about $20 per server. And there's additional discussions around what that means and additional resources like the EBS and EC2 storage that Iris and the CloudEndure team will work with you on to make sure that you're getting the best available rates from AWS possible. But AWS's transparent pricing policy of charging you just for the resources you use per hour makes it very simple. If you want to test this out, if you want to run disaster recovery, it's only necessary for the time that you're actually needing it. If you decide to migrate and no longer need disaster recovery because you're looking to refactor on AWS and run native AWS services, simply shut it down and don't pay for a single hour over what you were running it for. It really is something that you can get from the AWS marketplace, and it's something that is both easy and cost effective for you. And with that, I want to pass it to Jesse and have him explain a little bit more of Iris's role in this process.
Thanks, Roman. As you said, disaster can come in many forms, failed hardware, human error, etc., which is why every business should have a periodic security assessment, as well as a tested disaster recovery and business continuity plan. Luckily, Iris Solutions specializes in both of those. I want to talk a bit about ransomware, as this tends to be the type of disaster that we see most often, and I'm sure almost everyone has heard of it by now. You know, gone are the days where viruses were just a minor inconvenience. Once a ransomware virus gains access to your network, it's really disruptive. It sends out probes looking for servers, file stores, and backups, and begins to encrypt all of your data. And while data encryption is vital to our connected world, this also unfortunately means that there are no backdoors or other ways of getting around the encryption used by ransomware. So once your data has been held hostage, you really only have two options, and that is to load your most recent clean backup or pay the ransom. And unfortunately, paying the ransom doesn't guarantee you'll get your data back. So the impact of a ransomware outbreak in your business, it's going to mean downtime. There's just no way around it. And that loss of productivity will inherently lead to a financial loss. And depending on your industry, you can also face regulatory fines. You know, you might have to make a formal public announcement. And of course, that can lead to a loss in brand confidence. And unfortunately, ransomware infections, they're increasing year over year. Actually, there was a 20% jump in the number of reported infections from 2019 to 2020. And total financial loss from ransomware is projected to surpass $20 billion in 2021. So most of these outbreaks occur through malicious code hidden in what appears to be common files, you know, emails, PDFs, so on and so forth. And usually these imposter files find their way into your network as attachments to emails, and they're designed to trick your staff into opening them. And once they do, that launches the virus. So all of this begs the question, if ransomware is so disruptive and widespread, then how can it continue to be so effective? Why are the number of successful attacks increasing rather than decreasing? And there's a lot of factors to take into account when answering. Most organizations don't invest in security awareness training, which would help their employees spot these malicious emails. Some organizations also do not have monitored backups, and they're not routinely tested. So successful attacks have a very high return on investment, and surprisingly, they require almost no skill to pull off. The software that automates these kinds of attacks is easily purchased on the dark web, and the antivirus, you know, that's standing in between you and these ransomware attacks, it's not 100% effective, given the fact that new viruses are released daily, literally every day. Vulnerabilities in operating systems and other software can take weeks or even months to get patched, and that's potentially leaving you exposed until a security update is available. And of course, as systems continue to just grow more and more complex, it becomes really, really increasingly difficult to anticipate and address all the gaps in your security posture. So how do you ensure that your organization can recover from ransomware, or any disaster for that matter, as quickly as possible and with no data loss? Well, backups are table stakes. You must ensure that your data is being backed up routinely. Unfortunately, not all backups are created equal. Do you know if your backup solution only copies files and folders? Having that is certainly better than nothing, but it will lead to much longer recovery times because operating systems will have to get reinstalled, software will have to get reinstalled, it all has to be updated, reconfigured, so on and so forth. Does your backup software alert you to failed backups? Unfortunately, it's not uncommon for a business owner to discover too late that their last backup took place weeks or in some cases even months ago. How often are your backups occurring? We refer to that as RPO, which stands for Recovery Point Objective. If you were to have to load your backups for whatever reason, would your data be an hour old? Would it be a day, a week? This metric really should be driven by the needs of the business. And in our experience, most businesses find even a few hours of lost data completely unacceptable. And these are just a few of the questions our team here at Iris Solutions can help you think through when designing your disaster recovery and business continuity plans. So over the course of the last year, with the added pressure and the security implications of increased cyber threats, combined with the added security risks of employees working remotely, we felt the need to reevaluate the tools that we use to help our clients avoid, and if necessary, quickly recover from disaster, because this is such a vital undertaking. Which is why, after careful vetting, we've chosen CloudEndure as the backup platform we deploy for all of our clients. Iris Solutions specializes in the installation and continuous monitoring of CloudEndure on AWS. As Roman has demonstrated, CloudEndure really is the next generation of cutting-edge backup and disaster recovery solutions. And what was once really only attainable by large enterprises is now available and affordable to the entire SMB market. CloudEndure, it enforces continuous data replication, which means that RPO number mentioned previously is now measurable in seconds. Meaning, if disaster were to strike, your backup data would be within seconds of where your live production data was just prior to the incident. And furthermore, CloudEndure does what's called block level replication. So instead of just backing up your files and your folders, it's actually making a mirror image of the entire drive. And this drastically reduces recovery times because your server's operating systems and your line of business applications don't need to get reinstalled. Replicating your data into AWS can also drastically reduce your recovery time because a temporary server with your latest backups can be launched and live within minutes. CloudEndure also provides continuous data protection with recovery points every 10 minutes and retention up to 30 days. And because all of this is powered by AWS, you only pay for what you use. No more costly spare equipment just sitting around waiting to be needed. So a common response that we hear from small and medium business owners is that they're too small and that no one is really going to target them specifically. And unfortunately, that's just not true. These types of attacks are highly automated, and they're designed to really reach as many businesses as possible. And another painful yet really important question that you have to consider is, how much does it cost you and your business to be down? Because even with up-to-date traditional backups, it can take hours or even days to recover, depending on the size and the complexity of your network, how much data you have, so on and so forth. And so every business, really, they need a plan. They need a plan for when the worst case scenario becomes your reality. And there's often some level of chaos and confusion that comes with any disaster. So having that plan and having it tested, in place, and ready to go can save precious time when beginning the recovery process. Think of it as a fire drill. You want to know where the emergency exits are before the building is on fire. And in fact, we're so confident in this product that we want to offer you a free backup and disaster recovery assessment. So give us a call. Our number is 704-523-3877, and we'll get yours set up today. And with that, I think we're going to move into Q&A. I believe we have some questions, so thank you to everyone who submitted. Question one, if I get ransomware, are my backups also affected? Roman, you want to take this one?
Sure. So it's possible. It's one of those things where ransomware is a very tricky monster, and it doesn't come in one particular flavor. It's everything from crypto locker to actually infecting those backups as well. So that's kind of the reason why I think Iris provides something unique here. So CloudEndure is one of the tools that your team leverages in terms of ransomware recovery, but it's not the only thing. And I think I'll let you speak a little bit to that. But in general, I think the idea of preventing or protecting against ransomware is a multi-pronged approach. It can't just be one tool that makes sure that you never have ransomware. If it was easy to solve ransomware, someone would have solved it by now. But Jesse, I think you're probably more of an expert on the other stuff and everything else that could sort of come into play when it comes to that.
Yeah, I agree, and I echo your sentiments. It's quite possible. If you just have an external hard drive attached to your server that stores your backups, I mean, it's trivial for somebody with access to your network to either delete them or to encrypt them. So, that's when we're doing security assessments. That's one of the things we look for. How is your data being backed up? Is there a separate password? Is it being stored off-site as well as on-site? And what we do for our clients, specifically with CloudEndure, we take great efforts, extremely long passwords, two-factor authentication on all AWS accounts. So yeah, the short answer is it's possible, but with a little bit of planning, it is definitely something that you can prevent. All right, question two, how do you know if your computer has become infected with ransomware? It's pretty obvious, unfortunately. You come into work on Monday and you go to open a spreadsheet or a PDF and you get an error saying the file can't be opened. And you dig a little deeper, you notice all your file names have been changed. There'll be text files in all of your folders, labeled decrypt instructions, and they actually walk you through the process of securing Bitcoin, getting onto the dark web, making contact with the attacker. It's so disruptive, you'll know right away. What do you think, Roman?
I tend to agree. There are times when ransomware will sit in your system and deploy itself later. Some of the trickier ransomware options will do that. And that's actually one of the real beauties of how both CloudEndure works and how you can leverage AWS is you don't have to fail over to the latest checkpoint. So if you got hit with ransomware Tuesday and you were told Thursday, oh, by the way, we've been infecting you for 3 days, you can actually fail over to before then. And with CloudEndure, there's a couple real good options here, where one is you can spin up test environments to see if the ransomware is still there. And two, you can look for things if you have monitoring in place when it comes to your environment to see when you had things like large IO spikes or anything that would be an indication of use that is out of the ordinary, something that you wouldn't expect, to really pinpoint that time when you think that you actually got the ransomware.
Yeah. We've seen an analysis that the virus is deliberately launched Friday evening, after everybody's gone home for the day, so that they have the entire weekend to run through their process. So being able to go back in time and with CloudEndure, those 10-minute increments, I mean, you can really dial in to the point where, just prior to being infected. What happens if you don't pay ransomware criminals? Go ahead, Roman.
I think it's mostly pretty straightforward. It's anything from they will delete your data to they will release your data to the public to they will basically run havoc around it. The problem here is it's not even what happens if you don't pay ransomware criminals. There's no guarantee that if you do, any of those things won't happen. I mean, by definition, these people are not people that are working within a lawful structure or a lawful means. They don't have to decrypt your data. It might be good practice so that people assume that that's what's going to happen, but there's no guarantees in this world. Plus, decryption takes days, weeks, months. There's no guarantee they're going to let you do this within a minute. It's not like flipping on a switch. You're still going to be spending months digging through what was actually done to your services.
Agreed. Agreed. And actually, which leads us into our fourth question. So, is it not easier and faster to just pay the ransomware instead of restoring my information from backups? And there's just a lot to take into account there. Say you get ransomware and they're demanding 500 bitcoins. Most people don't have 500 bitcoins, so now you're going to a cryptocurrency exchange, and they have a vetting process. You have to, take a picture of your face, take a picture of your license, your driver's license, and send it in, and that could take a day or two or more to even be able to start the purchase process. And so once you have that, you have to, again, navigate to the dark web, the onion router, so on and so forth, and make contact to get your decryption keys. And then the decryption process can start. So we're 2, maybe 3 days in at this point, and we're just starting the decryption process. And the more files you have, the more time it will take. I'll give you an example. One of the last ransomware remediations we were called in on, the client's backups got deleted, so they had already made the decision to pay. And we received the decryption key, and we started the process, and we quickly realized that something was wrong. Well, more so than the ransomware infection. We were only able to decrypt about 1 out of every 20 files. And it turns out that the virus had spawned multiple versions of itself, and all requiring different decryption keys. So we had to process every single file 20 times. So from the point we got the keys, we were still 4 days away from having all of their data decrypted and back in place.
Yeah, that's impressive. In terms of ransomware, I've heard stories very similar to that have been everything from a few weeks to a month to, it's taken us, we never fully recovered. We decided to just move to a different service and start building some of this stuff from scratch and slowly maneuver back out. It really is something that is designed to disrupt you in a very massive way and not give you an easy path back, even if you give the money up to the criminals.
Right. And also file corruption. Some of these ransomware programs, they're not designed by there's a chance they're not designed by the brightest people. Obviously there's a level of intelligence there to get it going, but we have also come across, once the files have been decrypted, they're corrupt beyond the point of being usable. So it's very disruptive, even if you decide to pay. Okay, our next question. What does it look like to have disaster recovery tools installed? Does this need some sort of equipment installed, or is it all virtual?
So that's a very good question. And again, it'll vary by tool. With CloudEndure, it's actually very easy. You're installing a small, lightweight agent per server. It's all software. There's nothing physical involved. There's no impact to the server, no impact to production. The whole goal of this is to create a system that allows you to run the same way that you're running on-premise or in AWS very easily, and allow you to both fail over and fail back without the idea that you're really having to install all of this intrusive hardware or this additional very bloated software. It's designed to be specifically very lightweight and very user-friendly for the purposes of, we understand that no one wants to be in a disaster. This is a requirement that you need for your business, but no one wants to buy extra data centers, buy extra malicious, anti-malicious software and stuff like that. You want to make this as the least amount of impact to your environment as possible. And that's really the goal of CloudEndure and why it's designed to work entirely as software that's very lightweight and easily maneuverable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it does it well. The agent is a few megabytes. Once the CloudEndure project has been built out, you generate the installer, you throw it on a server. The install time, I've never seen it take longer than 2 minutes. And within seconds, once the install finishes, you can see that server appear in the CloudEndure console and begin that initial replication. So it's very lightweight and very quick. At what point in the growth cycle should my business be prioritizing data backups? I think Roman will agree with me that you should always be prioritizing data backups. From the day you open your doors, backups need to be top of mind. They really are just sacrosanct. You need good, solid backups from day one.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I mean, to take this even out of the business thing, I think it was many years ago, my first time in college, where I didn't save a term paper, and then 2 a.m. my computer crashed, and all of a sudden I didn't have my term paper. That was the one and only time that I needed to know that I need to back up absolutely everything at all times. I think everybody learns that lesson at some point or another. Hopefully, you don't have to learn it personally on your own, either term paper or job or whatever it is. But that cycle needs to happen almost immediately, because you know that as a business, especially as you're starting out, but even down the road, if you have this downtime, if you have this data loss, that can be crippling. And depending on your competition, that can end it for you.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I have done the same song and dance of losing the term paper at midnight, the day before it's due. I heard a security researcher once say, if you only have one copy of your digital data, you really don't have any copies of your digital data, because it can, hard drives fail, power blips. There's any number of reasons that can cause you to lose your data. So yeah, backups are sacrosanct, no matter what. I think that's a not too fine a point to put on it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got another question here. What steps can a small nonprofit take to ensure their emails, data, etc., are secure? And actually, I'll take this one, Roman. I actually have some experience with nonprofits. So really, the first answer, and this is the first answer for everyone, is to get a security assessment. Have a third party come in, take a look at what you have, and write up a report and see where your security gaps are. You can't really begin to tighten your security posture until you know where the gaps are. So that would be the first thing you should do. For emails, if you're on a platform like Office 365 and you're sending protected health information or any kind of sensitive information, it's fairly trivial to encrypt your emails, and it's pretty seamless for the recipient of your emails as well. So email encryption is a fantastic thing and easy to implement depending on the platform you're on. And then data, it's, you can certainly have your data encrypted on your server if that's where it lives, if it's in SharePoint or OneDrive or, wherever, make sure that if there's an encryption feature that it's on, it's configured, and that would be my answer, full stop. So our next question, some of our tools in the office are smart tools with internet connectivity. Should we be concerned about the security of these devices? Can hackers hack into products like scanners? What do you think, Roman?
So yes, I think anything that's connected to the internet can be hackable. I think it varies, and I think that's really where your team, Jesse, and the Iris brand kind of shines, is being able to do these security assessments that we were talking about before, is going in and saying, okay, so we have what we know about the CloudEndure, what needs CloudEndure. Now let's talk about everything else that you need for protection. There are many avenues to break into an environment, and you really do need to secure them. Otherwise, yeah, it's something where leaving just one opening is good enough to take down the business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that ransomware outbreak I was talking about just a few minutes ago, with the 20 different variants kind of all competing to encrypt the same data, the way that they got in was just a vulnerability in their perimeter, and it was something that would have shined like a spotlight on our security assessment. I mean, we would have picked it up right away and encouraged them heavily to close that gap. So yeah, the security assessments are a great first step in getting a peace of mind that all of your devices, not just your servers and your computers, but literally everything that talks on your network, needs to be evaluated and needs to be made as secure as possible. And this is our last question here. How much storage space do small offices typically need to run day-to-day functions? We are a small accounting firm. It's really just dependent on what you do. A small accounting firm, say 10 or 12 people, I would guess less than a terabyte of data, mostly just documents. If you're an oral surgeon and you're taking 3D scans, I mean, you could have terabytes of data. So it's really hard to nail down. But again, something that we go through in our assessment process is determining what you have, where it lives, how it's backed up, and then of course, how secure is it?
Yeah, I think that was the exact point that I was kind of going to touch on. So you stole my thunder there, Jesse. But what I was going to say is one of the beauties of Iris and why we leverage specifically the partner network and Iris in specific in a lot of these cases is that there's an ability to go into the environment and say, okay, I'm just going to install an agent. It's going to replicate over and I'm done. But the reality of it is do you need all of that provisioned disk space? Is there a way to right size it? What kind of disks do you need on the other end? There's a lot of cost saving mechanisms that are built into the tool that are by design there to help you as a business decide what's important to you and how fast and how quickly do you need it. Do you need everything to run on solid state when you're up in the cloud? Or is some of it less relevant to you? Would it work fine on magnetic disk? Is that what you're running in production? And all of these are things that you can sort of adjust as you're looking at AWS, and something that Iris can help you navigate. And through their ability to set this up, through their ability to test this out, I think it really does create a lot of cost savings for small accounting firms versus the idea of just continuing to buy additional hardware, refreshing it on all sides, renting a colo, going to a different, provider that would, for instance, charge you for space you don't need, et cetera, et cetera. The elasticity of AWS really can't be overstated when it comes to things like disaster recovery, migration, all those kinds of steps. And the ability of Iris to set all of this up, that's absolutely paramount. Like that's something that we very much are happy with and very, very, very convinced that Iris is the path to go to if you're looking to set up AWS and CloudEndure in specific.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And yeah, I tell people, AWS is like the biggest toolbox you've ever seen, but having a big, well-stocked toolbox doesn't make you a carpenter, doesn't make you a mechanic. It's knowing which tool to reach for the job and knowing how to use that tool effectively. And I believe that that's something that we do well. It's trivial to spin up a server in AWS. I mean, you guys by design have made it easy. But are you spinning up the right server? Is it properly provisioned? Do you have too much? Do you have too little? And it's one of my favorite things about the cloud and AWS in general is just the ability to scale down as well as scale up, which traditional hardware, you can't just give Dell back some RAM and say, sorry, we bought too much. You're there. Once you sign that check, you're done. But with AWS, we have a lot of tools at our disposal to really help make sure that you're getting exactly what you need and not paying, a dime more than you should be for it.
Agreed.
All right, Roman. Well, that is all of the questions. So thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the wonderful dive into CloudEndure. It's truly a fantastic product, and I'm happy to work with it. I enjoy it.
Yeah, no, that's great. And thank you guys for being a great partner and for helping out a lot of our customers. It's been absolutely a great partnership, and we look forward to continuing it down the road.
As do we. Thank you. Thank you all.